Thanks very much. This has to be one of the largest gatherings of people with PhDs in the world. So it is very exciting to be here, and thank you very much for that nice introduction. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and it's exciting to me for two reasons. The first is that I myself am a think tanker, having spent 12 years of my professional life in a combination of think tanks, a couple of years at the Urban Institute, and then, as Maureen said, about 10 at the Center for Global Development in Washington, working for Nancy Birdsall and with Owen Barter, and both of them, I believe, will be here if they're not already. And from that experience, I came to understand how research in economics, political science, and other social sciences can be oriented to address and even answer some of the most important public policy questions of the moment. And then, in creative ways, communicated to both the general public and the policy community to inform their understanding and their actions. I saw and experienced myself what it is to be a credible and trusted source of analysis by both the legislative branch and the executive branch, sometimes serving as a bridge between them through good analytic work. And I had the chance to work with creative colleagues who found ways to bring the policy interests and priorities into the establishment of the research from the very beginning, and then ways to engage members of the policy community as the work went forward, so that in the end they really understood and appreciated and owned the resulting analyses. I also learned, like I think many of you, during my time working in think tanks, how hard it is to pursue an independent research agenda when you're dependent on soft money, because the most relevant questions are not always the questions that funders are most interested in supporting work on. And at the Center for Global Development, where I had some institutional responsibilities in addition to my own research, I saw the challenges of creating and making the most of a board of very eminent professionals, engaging them just enough to get their best input, and keeping them at a healthy distance so they did not interfere with day-to-day work at the center. And I saw the difficulties of recruiting and retaining senior researchers from that very small global pool of individuals who do academic quality research and at the same time are motivated to really have their work make change in the world. And finally, I saw how hard we all had to work every single day to make sure that the work that we did was seen and heard amidst the very noisy environment in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. I suspect that some of these challenges are things that you face yourselves. So the second reason I'm excited to be here is because now that I'm at the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, I have the chance to be part of this collaboration among funders who are committed to making possible what is really a grand experiment that you are all a part of, and we are all together a part of. Along with our colleagues at IDRC, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the governments of the UK and the Netherlands, we're very pleased to be able to have put a total of $113 million into the service of supporting think tanks around the world for the first 5 years, and providing precious, unearmarked institutional support to nearly 50 think tanks around the world. So that is a big bet. And I want to take just a moment to tell you why we all placed the bet, and it relates to the questions that Maureen put on the table. So first, we place this bet because we believe that independent think tanks working within their own context are key to sound policy formulation and government accountability. Increasingly, as governance processes become more open, think tanks are an important, a crucial contributor to the development of sound public policy. And strong think tanks in low and middle-income countries can define and produce quality research that is relevant to national priorities and can really make a difference. Second, we place this bet because we believe that independent think tanks in the global south generate ideas and serve as a platform for voices that should be informing questions and issues about development outside of their own countries in the global arena. Whether at regional economic meetings or the World Economic Forum, we need to hear research-based contributions from directors and senior researchers at think tanks in the global south. Deliberations by parliaments and by Congress in donor countries benefit when hearings can draw from the work of public intellectuals in low and middle income countries. And partnerships between think tanks in the north and those in the south can help to ensure the relevance and credibility of policy research on development-related issues. We should all look for opportunities to make a place for each other's work in regional and global arenas. It borrows from the phrase that prevails in the human rights community and is in the spirit of not about us without us. We also place this bet because we believe that think tanks do their best work when they have flexible funding. Too often, research institutions that depend on grants and contracts are forced to move from issue to issue that are of interest to funders, which are often multilateral and bilateral donors. So the flexible general operating support permits think tanks to be able to set research agendas and pursue strategies that are appropriate to their own contexts, but may be different from donors' day-to-day interests. And we place this bet because we believe that the work of think tanks occurs and has influence over a relatively long time frame. So 5 and eventually 10 years of support is likely to be needed to move institutions to a qualitatively new level of productivity and influence. So when we place this bet, we also stack the odds in our favor. We have an excellent implementation team in Ottawa and the IDRC regional offices. We selected think tanks, the organizations that most of you belong to, competitively, seeking those with the most promise. And as you know, we've kept close track of the progress of the think tanks and of individual institutions. But we know that there are risks and expect both tremendous wins, and have seen those, and disappointments, and we have seen those as well. We hope that, at this meeting we have a chance to really share and hear about some of the impressive wins where an important convening, an important piece of analytic work really turned the discussion in the policy community toward a sounder approach. And I personally am looking for examples where think tanks have gone way beyond the report and the policy brief to obtain traction and influence of their work. But I also hope you feel very comfortable sharing with others what tactics and approaches have fallen short. Because I'm sure we all have lots of stories about the senior researcher who only shows up on payday and for meal times, or maybe that only happens in Washington. Or the massive report that was 2 years overdue and nobody read anyway. Or the policy prescription that was adopted, but then in the process of getting into legislation was so turned around that in the end, the result was anything but exciting. So we learned from that too, and I do think that we all have those stories to share. So this is a genuinely unique opportunity for those of us to really, who are here, to really get to know each other's work, institutional contexts, and to make the sort of connections that will help us then later create openings at both regional and global levels for your voices to be heard. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll be interested in hearing the other speakers.